So you have an idea for a book. What now? Blank page syndrome is real. I get it. I've been there. Today, I'm here to help as I help you conquer blank page syndrome and turn that blank page into something with words on it. So watch this video if you want to learn how to write killer first drafts and get your idea out of your head and onto the page. The first and most important thing you need to do when writing a first draft is outline. I know there are some people out there that don't agree with this. Writers usually fall into one of two camps. You have plotters, who like to plot out their book, and pantsers, who like to fly by the seat of their pants. But whether or not you're a plotter or a pantser, some kind of outline is necessary to prevent yourself from getting lost halfway through the book and abandoning the project altogether. Personally, I'm a plotter, and when I first started writing, I had a tendency to make outlines so detailed that it would kill all of the joy in writing a first draft because it wouldn't leave me any room to explore. Not only did this take an incredibly long time, but it didn't end up being that helpful because often when I would get to that part of the novel, the synopses wouldn't make sense anymore because I'd changed something or discovered something earlier in the book that would make that particular paragraph synopsis irrelevant. So instead, what I do now is that I pick out all of the main plot points and I write those down in order so that I have some sort of basic structure to structure this first draft around. I highly recommend doing your research and learning as much as you can about common plot arcs. I'm partial to the hero's journey, the 3-act structure, and the 5-act structure, but there are a lot of different structures that give you a basic beginning, middle, and end, and different climax points to keep your readers interested as they travel along your story. I'm linking a bunch of articles and discussions of these plot structures in the description below if you're interested in reading more about that. Fitting your plot into one of these structures is super helpful because not only does it give you a defined beginning, middle, and end for your story, but it also can give you ideas. It's really easy to give up writing a book at around the halfway point, especially if you don't know how it ends. This method guards you from that. Even if you're a pantser and not a plotter, this gives you a very basic structure to make sure that you don't veer off track, but also gives you a lot of room to explore and fly by the seat of your pants in between every major plot point. Your major plot points can also change. This is just a place to start. I'm also personally a huge fan of color coding my outlines. When I write first drafts, I like to assign every subplot a different color so that when I write out my bullet points of different things that I want to happen in scenes, I can turn them into the color corresponding to the subplot that they belong to, and I can track that particular subplot from the beginning to the end of the book. Here is an example of an outline I wrote for the rough draft of a book I wrote last year. This is not a complete outline, these are just events that I wanted to have happen, and I was able to fill in the rest with things that I discovered or things that I wanted to explore more and delete the ones in this list that I actually didn't want to write. You can see that it got shorter as it reaches the end. I knew that I wanted to end in a particular way, but I didn't exactly know how I was going to get there, so I ended up figuring out as I was writing and just had an idea of what I wanted the ending to be. Here's another example of a time that I used the 3-act structure to outline the first act of a screenplay I was writing. I wrote full paragraph descriptions of each scene because this was a formal step outline, but I wrote next to every paragraph the event it corresponded to in the official 3-act structure. If you're looking for a book to read about 3-act structure or structure in general, I highly recommend checking out Story by Robert McKee because I learned everything that I know about 3-act structure from this book. Alright, so now you have an outline. What do you do next? Set daily word counts. I cannot stress this enough. Write a set number of words every single day until you reach the end of the book. You might be thinking, what if I don't have enough time? Or what if I get distracted? I don't care. You have enough time for a set number of words. And if you get distracted, too bad. When I wrote the rough draft of my most recent book, I told myself I would write 2,000 words a day until it was done. By the time I reached the halfway mark, I told myself to bump that up to 3,000 words a day because I was hitting the 2,000 mark pretty easily. You need to learn what times are best for you to write and stick to those times religiously. For me, I write best first thing in the morning. The first thing that I do when I wake up is I go to my computer and I write my 2,000 to 3,000 words. I'm usually done in about 2 to 3 hours, and then I can just go about my day knowing that I've already done it. I'm gonna make a separate video on how to boost your word count, because there are a couple of tricks that you can do in order to get that up if you want to. I also highly recommend investing in an ergonomic keyboard because it makes typing fast so much easier and way more painless. The third thing you need to do when writing your first draft is use this as an opportunity to explore. Figure out why you love this book and what makes you want to write it so badly. Do you love the main character? Do you love the relationship between the main character and her best friend? Whatever it is, bring those things out. Figure out what feels slow to write, what feels fast. Is there romantic chemistry between two characters you weren't expecting? Explore that. Maybe there's something there. Maybe you'll discover some things that you didn't initially notice. Fourth, and this is a little bit controversial, but don't edit as you're writing your rough draft. Just don't do it. You need to create distance between yourself and your book. If you're like me, by the time you finish your rough draft, You want to drive your head through the monitor of the computer you were writing your rough draft on. Creating distance between yourself and your rough draft is healthy because it allows you to see your book in a more objective light, which makes editing later on easier. You'll be able to see your rough draft not only as a draft of your story, but as a book. I recommend taking about a month off, but that doesn't mean that you stop working. I stay plenty busy, just doing other things. Write short stories, write book 2, start a YouTube channel, focus on your email marketing. When you finish your rough draft, you should definitely be patting yourself on the back and let yourself take that break, because in my opinion, writing the rough draft is the hardest part about writing the book. So that's all in my process for writing rough drafts. Stay tuned because next week I'm going to be walking you through how to go about writing a second draft after you've already written your rough draft and have let it sit for a month without taking one single look at it.